I have my orders, 007. You have yours. Forget it.
And the girl that helped me escape, we just leave her there.
Oh god, this will be fun. Hey guys, it's Quinn. In the latest installment of my James Bond reviews, today we'll be taking a look at the first and, well, last film starring Georgia Lazenby on Her Majesty's Secret Service. To explain how this Australian model came into the role, we have to go back to 1967, when You Only Live Twice starring Sean Connery came out. After the release of the film, Connery was pissed off at the producers, in particular Harry Salzman, about how little privacy Connery was getting. He didn't enjoy being in the spotlight, and therefore quit the role that made him famous. So in the search of the next Bond, a young Georgia Lazenby, to paraphrase the story, stormed into the studio and told the producers that he was the next James Bond. The producers agreed, but were wary of his acting abilities and decided to get a great actor to surround Lazenby, which I'll discuss a little bit more as time goes on. So this is the story of George Lazenby. Let's see how he fares in this one and only James Bond film on Her Majesty's Secret Service. After one of the most flat-out bizarre gun barrels, solely because of its awful editing, we get a pretty great opening, which for a long time was my favorite part of the film. Just everything about it's fantastic. It introduces Lazenby as a badass, which soon fizzles, but never mind that. And the editing is just really fast-paced and clean. Of course, he gives a great James Bond quote in the process.
Good morning. My name's Bond. James Bond.
Don't move, Mr. Bond.
So after Bond saves a girl from presumably committing suicide as well as doing some ass-kicking, we are off into the title sequence. But before we get there, we get this really curious line.
This never happened to the other fella.
Now, people complain about this line a lot, and a lot of people use it as an excuse to say that James Bond's a codename. And on one hand, it is annoying that it's such an obvious shot at Connery, but on the other hand, I enjoy the fact that the Bond series is poking fun at itself. I understand why people do dislike it, but I personally love it. I just think it's funny. So after a really fantastic theme song by John Barry, which is one of my personal favorites in the series, involving a title sequence that involves clips from prior Bond films, which is kind of cheap, but I personally like how they're really establishing this is the same guy as Connery, which again goes against the codename theory. I will touch on the codename part of this later in part 2 of these videos, but it's just really frustrating that people use that one specific line to demonstrate that Bond is, in fact, a different person for all the different actors. And the way you gotta look at it is, in this exact same film, there is much more evidence showing that, indeed, they are all the same person. So it's just annoying to hear that that one line defines him. So yeah, I do enjoy the fact that they have these clips in the title sequence. We are then off into a casino hotel where we formally meet the Bond girl from earlier. Her name is Tracy, played by the amazing Diana Rigg. A little while back I did a video on the ranking of my top Bond girls, and I don't want to give anything away, but I believe Tracy was in my top 3 Bond girls, at least in my opinion. Really carries this movie even through the minor downtimes. She just has such a presence, and I love her in this film. Anyways, Bond saves Tracy after she cannot pay off a poker debt, and in return, she invites him to her room. Good on you, Lazenby. And after a really Red Grant-esque fight with a random henchman in Tracy's room, Bond tells Tracy to get dressed. Well, God, in any dimension, from here to eternity, you would never catch Connery doing that. The next day, as Lazenby's checking out, he's captured North by Northwest style by a bunch of henchmen, including the one that he fought yesterday. It turns out he's being brought to Tracy's father, who offers Bond to marry Tracy for £1 million. Bond denies, but promises to watch over Tracy in return for a connection to Blofeld. You know what that means? Full-on Spectre this film, people. And after a great MI6 scene, which has arguably the best M and money performance to date, Bond quits so he can hunt down Blofeld personally on a license to kill de facto kind of mission. Moneypenny changes the resignation to 2 weeks leave because she can. Bond goes through all of his stuff through prior films, which beg the question of why he has everyone's stuff. Like, he has Honey Rider's belt, Red Grant's watch, it doesn't matter. The next day, though, Bond meets with Tracy and the gang, and after discussing a deal to more or less hunt down Blofeld, Bond meets with and falls in love with Tracy in the best scene in the movie, with a montage of Bond and Tracy over a Louis Armstrong song. It's a nice scene which has never really been seen in the Bond series before and has been seen since.
that's all we have. You will find we need nothing more.
Love it. We then cut to Bond going to a building where he breaks into a safe, and after some Playboy product placement, Bond discovers files detailing the whereabouts of Blofeld. Bond, realizing that he cannot kill or capture Blofeld on Swiss grounds, covers as Sir Hilary Grey, a genealogist, in an attempt to bring back Blofeld to England so that Blofeld's family tree can be completed. Because Blofeld is on the Swiss Alps, and although that is the plan, it cannot actually work, seeing as Blofeld has already seen Bond in person, You Only Live Twice. You must remember that the book on Her Majesty's Secret Service was written before You Only Live Twice. So if you just keep that in mind, this plan, I guess, has a shot. I actually want to note a deleted 10-minute scene right about here after Bond has his meeting at the college, where a spy working at the college is listening in, and after a large chase, Bond throws him in front of a train. MI6 covers a story for this, with many people supposedly getting killed in a train crash, which becomes international news as Bond arrives in Switzerland. Yep, the more you know. Bond then travels to the Swiss Alps, where he meets Blofeld at Piz Gloria, his private research facility, where Blofeld studies all types of allergies. It is also here that we meet the main henchman of the film, Irma Bunt, played by Easy Steppet, and I know I botched it, but just go with it. She's an absolutely fantastic henchman and brings this sort of Rosa Klebb kind of badassness to her character, but at the same time, she's really strong and is easily one of the more capable of the Bond henchmen. Upon arriving at Piz Gloria, Bond invites Bond to dine with her and the girls. It is a really fun scene which, if Connery was the Bond in this one, probably would have turned into one of these.
Let me ask you a question, and be honest. Do I make you horny, baby? Do I? Do I make you randy? Yeah.
God, how I missed you, Connery. You want to actually know, with Lazenby here, Bond actually acts mostly collected, which in turn makes this scene more interesting to watch because the interactions between all these women and an unresponsive Bond is different than anything we've seen up to this point in the series. Anyways, we find out that every girl there is allergic to a particular food and all seem to be from different parts of the world. They think that Bond is gay, just pointing it out because I think it's funny, but before Bond has a chance to prove them wrong, he's called by Blofeld. Bond, in summary, tries to convince Blofeld that he must go back to England to prove his bloodline, but Blofeld denies. That night, after snooping around a little bit, we found out that the girls are being brainwashed by Blofeld. In an attempt to speed up this review a little bit, Bond is caught by Blofeld, a man checking up on Bond is killed, and Bond escapes Piz Gloria in a great scene where he must hold on to a gondola, when he truly finds out Blofeld's plan to destroy the world. It turns out the reason Blofeld is brainwashing the girls is to convince them to spread a disease through the foods that they formerly had allergies to, whether it be chicken, rice, etc. And the price to stop this? Amnesty for all of Blofeld's prior crimes. But upon finding out this detail, Bond is forced to escape in arguably the best ski chase in the series. I mean, the directing's great, the skiing at times on one leg is absolutely remarkable, and in an interview with George Lazenby, he described this scene as one of the most amazing things he's ever seen. I think my favorite part, though, is how the theme song is used over this bit. I've said this before, but I'll say it again. This theme is just perfect for a score, and this is the reason why. It is just such a lovely yet exciting song that just works well for this movie and this scene in particular. After all of this, though, the fun is not over. After another really great fight in a bell room, Bond is forced to flee after he's spotted by Irma Bunt. In a really non-Bond-like scene, you see Bond in actual fear, as demonstrated by him screaming when he runs into someone. People always shit on Lazenby as the worst Bond, but I rather think that he acts the most unlike Bond. Yes, he is wooden, but so is Roger Moore. But the problem with Lazenby's Bond, not as much George Lazenby himself, is that he's just soft. I'll discuss this in further detail as to why this is disliked by so many people a little bit later, but it's just interesting to note that because he acts in this sort of fearing way, he runs into Tracy. This is when the shit hits the fan.